Hello, I'm Rohan, and right now I wanted to sort of explain a project that I want to do. For those of you who don't know, there is a game engine called Godot, or Godot, which is not the correct pronunciation, but it's kind of more intuitive to say. Anyway, it's an open source game engine made with C++, and it's actually surprisingly good, and I really like it. I use it for pretty much all my games. Actually, all of my games. I have a lot of games going on right now that I'm working on, but Godot has been really great for all of them, really. And so I wanted to sort of, because it's open source, I wanted to sort of contribute in a way. And my idea is kind of weird, kind of eccentric, but for those of you who use Godot, you probably know that the main language that it supports is GDScript, which is its own custom scripting language, and its syntax is probably closest to Python, and it doesn't really do anything super like crazy that's difficult to understand. It's mostly pretty intuitive, but I guess this is sort of a nitpick, and maybe a lot of work to go to over a nitpick, but the syntax of Python kind of bothers me, and don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing Python or anything, but the syntax just kind of bothers me, like how you declare variables with like well, in Python you don't actually, there are no declarations, you would just put the name of the variable. So like, right, like you declare a variable like this, and there's really, in Python I don't know if there's a way to define data types in Python. I never really do. I never worry about that, because when I'm using Python, I'm usually not thinking too in detail and in depth. But anyways, in Godot, it's sort of similar. If you want to declare a variable, like let's say you want to make a number, you do var number, and then if you want to include the data type, which actually, if you didn't know, Godot is dynamically typed, so isn't necessary, but if you wanted to, you can include the data type as like an integer, like that. And so this is basically how you define a variable in Godot, and well, more specifically in GDScript. How I prefer to define this variable is like this, and this is actually closer to like C or C++. And like I said already, it's really more of a nitpick, but I can't help it. I just prefer it that way. And what I want to do is I want to edit Godot's or not Godot, GDScript to like it's a module, right? So it's not built into Godot's core. You can add in modules on your own, right? And like that. So I want to edit the GDScript module to be, and sort of change it into a different scripting language that has different syntax. And there's really not that much of a change. It's almost entirely, well, actually, it is entirely just the syntax. That's about it. But that's not the only change. I guess I'll go into a little bit more. Like, let's say you don't want to put in a data type. What do you do then? Because in languages like C, the data type is necessary there. Well, I just do this. I just use the let keyword instead of var. Because think about it, like when you do math equations, let's say like you're, I don't know, doing some sort of a mathematical proof, that's how you'd say it in that context too. You'd say like let variable a equal b, like you know, this is how you'd say it in English. So I think this makes more sense in declaring variables too. Let this equal this, rather than var this equals this, because like here's how you declare it in GDScript, and here's how I would, you know, here's how I would have it declared. And also keep in mind that I'm gonna be writing semicolons in here, but I don't really mind like the lack of semicolons. I mean, in GDScript you can also, in GDScript you can still use semicolons, like you know, print 1, and then you can also put a semicolon there and do print 2 and have those on the same line. So semicolons aren't useless, and it's just that they're not necessary, and I'm fine with that, honestly. I'm not proposing that semicolons are made necessary, and I guess to illustrate that point, I'll just get rid of them, because that would make things confusing. So the semicolons aren't really part of the syntax that I plan on changing. So here's how you define a function in GDScript. So you write the function content here, so like return plus b, and you know, you might notice immediately that this is very indentation based, because there's no brackets. So instead of an opening bracket here, you have a colon, and so it's really just based on the indentation where the function ends. So like if I want to write another function, I have to write it at a lower indentation level, and that's not really the issue. The issue is that I just don't like a colon, right? I mean, I prefer, here's how I prefer it. And once again, it's like, it's a nitpick. It's a very minor thing, but you know, that makes a big difference in like the experience of it, you know, and I guess the way you use it. So yeah, this is one of the changes that I would add, using brackets. And keep in mind, if you don't like these changes, I'm not like, this is really for me, because I would prefer syntax closer to languages like C or maybe even Java. With, you know, with brackets and all, and C in terms of, you know, the data type first, and then the variable name, and let, because that just makes more sense. But you know, if you don't agree with these changes, and if you think this is a terrible idea, you don't have to really use my scripting language. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Anyway, another thing that's, you know, important with function declarations, still on the subject of function declarations, is let's say you want to declare a type. So like argument A is an integer and argument B is also an integer, right? So here's how you do that in GDScript. And here's how I prefer it. And I already touched on this with the oh crap, I forgot to put the name of the function. There we go. And I already touched on this in this section with the variable declarations, but I would prefer it to be int A and int B. You know, I'm not sure why I specifically have that nitpick, but I just find it more intuitive, I guess. It's more pleasant to look at too, without the colon, extra punctuation, and it kind of just makes more sense, like in terms of reading it too. Like if you read this out loud, integer A and integer B, as opposed to A, which is an int or an integer, and B, which is an integer, you know, it's more readable. It just makes more sense to me. So this is what I prefer. And let me just clarify that. I mean, I think I've made this clear so far, but just in case I didn't, the first line is how it's already done, and the second line, or the first part is how it's done with GDScript, and the second part is how I'd prefer it. So yeah, that's how I'm writing this. So like, here's the way you declare a variable with a type in GDScript. Here's how I'd change it, and same thing with this and this line, and you know, I'm doing these in pairs. So I'll just remove this space to make it more obvious. So yeah, that's another one of the big things. And then there's a few more things here and there. I can't really think of them right now off the top of my head. They probably come to me more as I actually use GDScript, you know, coding a game or something. But these are really the main ones. These are the biggest ones that I'd like to change. You know, the variable declarations and the function declarations. So really, I'm not really looking to add any new features, or I'm not really like trying to add anything here. My goal is just to change the syntax of GDScript so it's more familiar to and more like comfortable to people like me who prefer the syntax of languages like C. And keep in mind, this doesn't change anything about GDScript functionally. This doesn't change the way you would code your things at all. The only thing it changes is like the keywords you'd use, like in this scenario where you use let instead of var, and the order you write things in. But like, keep in mind, this doesn't change anything. You don't have to go out of your way to use this. Like there's already ways to do everything. Like most of it isn't even going to be changed, you know. It's just minor stuff like this. Like, you know, it'd be pretty easy to change this, and this doesn't change anything functionally, right? Like, you still have a function in both cases that takes arguments a and b, and it returns the sum of those arguments. And then here, in this case, in both cases, it takes an integer a as an argument and an integer b as an argument, and it returns the sum of those. So functionally, it doesn't change. You don't have to rework your code to use this. I mean, obviously, you'll have to change the syntax, but just keep in mind that this is really entirely aesthetical, and it's not really something that would cause issues with your logic. Which also means it's not going to have any fancy features like preprocessor things. Like, it's not gonna be able to have things like define statements or include. So you're not going to be able to do lines like this, and you're not going to, obviously, I mean, this is kind of obvious, but you're not going to be able to include, you're not really going to be able to use any fancy, like, preprocessor things, or anything fancy that you'd be able to use in C. There's not going to be memory allocation or pointers or any of that. Just keep in mind that, you know, this is literally just another version of GDScript with different syntax. So I think that's really, that's about it right now, like, for now. If I have more details, I will make note of those later on too, and, you know, I'll document them like I am now. But that's the gist of it. If you're interested in helping, leave a comment, because honestly, I'm reverse engineering the entire module, like the compiler and the parser and the tokenizer and the analyzer. I'm pretty much reverse engineering the whole thing because I have no idea how the GDScript, like, compiler actually works. I have no idea, like, how it's coded. So I would really appreciate any help with this project. So yeah, leave a comment if you're interested in helping. And yeah, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Talk to you later. Bye bye.